Episode number 278, 5 game-changing strategies for 2021 with the 1230 lead team. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Well guys, we have made it to the end of 2020. No one would have predicted the year that we've had, from COVID-19 to an election year, to churches all around the world having to close their doors, to churches having to figure out how to go digital and do church online, to figuring out what it looks like to do online and physical experiences at the same time. It has been a wild, wild year, and you have been on the front lines of making ministry happen at your church. And if you don't hear it from anyone else, thank you. Way to go. Thank you for what you do for the kingdom. Thank you for the sacrifices that you've made that no one else sees to make Sunday happen at your church. Way to go. The kingdom has been impacted because of your service. This week, we're doing a very informal family episode of the podcast. I've invited our lead team at 1230 Media to come hang out with me today. So you'll hear from our team as we hang out and reflect on the year that it has been, and also look ahead to 2021. We'll talk about what we've seen in the churches that we serve and how things are looking for next year. First, let's check the mailbag. Here we go. In the mailbag this week, we hear from Brandon Harrison from our Making Sunday Happen Facebook group. Brandon says, this year has caused a ton of pivoting in each of the ministries of our church, where we have always felt that our connection to the community was tied in large part to our weekend and midweek gatherings. We were forced to revisit our definition of the win, where there could have been chaos and confusion mixed with dissonance and frustration. Instead, God used the complexity to bring unity, innovation, and mutually initiated grace among the leadership. God has continued to move in our church community, maybe even more now with our live stream options. Where we consider technology to be a band-aid for the season, God has used to reach and encourage many more with His gospel message that we could ever have done previously. God is faithful, and He gives us the same opportunities to reach the masses as the secular community. It's the training, learning, and investment that we need to submit to. Brandon, thank you for that testimony. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that with us, man. I would love to hear from you. You're welcome to email me directly at carl@1230.media, or you can find me on social media at Carl Barnhill. I'd love to share what God is doing at your church and through your ministry with the listeners of this podcast. So be sure to reach out and share a testimony with me. It's not about what we are doing at 1230 Media. It's about you guys on the front lines. You're the heroes in ministry. We're just alongside to help you with media content and training, but you are the hero on the front lines, making Sunday happen week in and week out. So great job. Way to go. I would love to hear what God is doing at your church, so feel free to share that with me. All right, the 1230 Media lead team is coming right up after this. Here we go.
Wake up. Make it on time. Learn this. Post that. Work out. Go out. Repeat. Wake up. Make it on time. Learn this. Post that. Work out. Go out. Repeat. Wake up. Make it on time. Learn this. Post that. Work out. Go out. Repeat. Wake up. Make it on time. Learn this. Post that. Work out. Go out. Repeat. 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 Try. Wake up.
Pardon the noise. This is the sound of freedom. I'm free.
God
evaluates life and purpose. You and I have one life to live. Only what we've done for God in Christ will last. Everything else is wood, hay, and stubble.
Jesus, our Master, our Savior, the Hound of Heaven, is chasing us down.
We should be creative.
Hey guys, that was a promo video for C3 Conference in 2021. It's February 17th and 18th in Dallas, Texas. You can get tickets today at c3conference.com. That's c3conference.com. Well, hey guys, today I'm hanging out with our 1230 lead team. We got our executive director, Steve Dirks, our creative director, Sean Reese, our director of ready-made media, Trevor Miller, and our lead video producer, Christian Jones. We are hanging out. We are right in the middle of Christmas, so it is pretty hectic for us. So to carve out a few minutes is going to be fun today. So this week is a super informal episode of our show. We know it's been a crazy year, and we just wanted to hang out for a bit and chat about 2020 and some ideas for where the church might be going in the coming year. So, guys, thanks for hanging out. Trevor, you want to kick us off? What have catch us up on the church? Kind of the state of the church and where we are. What caught us off guard this year?
Yeah, so I know everybody kind of on this call right now is in some way or another still really plugged into church life, kind of local church ministry in some kind of way or another. And I serve at a church, full time. And I think from our standpoint, what I've noticed most was where we got caught off guard the most has been many churches maybe that were dabbling, wanting to have maybe a live stream or have an opportunity to cast their service out for folks to watch, that maybe because of money, because of maybe vision or lack of vision or whatever, never had really pulled that trigger. And so because of that, once COVID hit and there were some restrictions placed on the church to not be able to meet with one another, they had no way of really having church with their congregation still. So there are other churches maybe that have been maybe having some foresight to have some of those things in place that really for them, there was a lot of shifting and moving for sure, but they had the kind of infrastructure in place to be able to have church still. So I'm not sure about y'all's experience, but from our standpoint, that was the thing that we had to do the most, is figure out how to make a church that is physical in nature, all of a sudden digital in nature very, very quickly.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, in my experience, one of the biggest things I experienced is nobody believed that would happen.
That's
like
true.
They saw it coming and they were just like, we'll never, I mean, this is America. We're never going to shut down. The churches will always be here. I think that caught a lot of people off guard. At least around here it did.
Yeah, and industries too. Like I know we have friends in the event business and stuff like that. I mean, who would have imagined entire industries having to shut down? Churches, I mean, there was a period when this first started, no one in America was meeting at church. Zero. That's crazy. Insane. I mean, who would have thought that would have happened? Well, Sean, let's piggyback on that. What are some things that, and Trevor mentioned, of course, live streaming and stuff, but what are some other things that maybe COVID really pushed the church into, forced us to do?
I mean, obviously, live streaming. There are, like Trevor said, there's so many churches that they really, man, it's not something they ever would have done. And to survive, they did it, and to reach their people and to do what they felt like they needed to do. So, but I think beyond that, besides just the live streaming thing, intentional connection with their people on a different level, because usually you're in person, you're seeing people, you're talking to people, you connect with them every week. If you're a smaller church, you know everybody's name, you know what they're doing. If you're medium to large church, I mean, you have strategy in place, like small groups and stuff for people to set up and to really have those conversations with people in person. And being online is a totally different thing. You can't just, you're on Facebook and you might be commenting and talking back. It's just a whole different beast. And I think that really is something that moved the church forward, is how to connect people offline, because our world is moving not just to offline church services, but offline connections, groups on Zoom and different things like that. So.
What do you guys think about churches that maybe in more traditional churches that were not online, maybe probably wouldn't have been if this didn't happen? What do you think their future looks like? Obviously, they can't really go back. I mean, online's here to stay. What do you guys think about where they are going?
I think it's forced everyone to have to look at online as an option. So I think the thing that I've heard over and over is the churches that didn't want to do online or just kind of threw something out there were forced to now look at how do you actually reach people in an online environment, and how does that actually translate to people being connected to your church, people actually living out the gospel by giving, serving, and going. How does that actually happen? Whereas I think before people would just throw something online as oh, we have an opportunity for you to check us out. But it really wasn't a priority. At least the churches I was a part of, it wasn't a priority. But then, April, May, June, you start getting those calls where they're like, holy cow, someone actually joined our church and got baptized this past Sunday. Yeah. Online actually can reach people if we do it the right way, if we think about it, if we pour energy and time into it. So I think it's forced everyone to realize it can be a campus of your church if you put the time and effort into valuing it just like you value your in-person experience.
That's the silver lining behind this, right? I mean, so this has been a very difficult time, obviously, for months now. But the silver lining potentially behind this is there are many churches now who are equipped to do ministry in 2020, 2021 that were not equipped to do it in the first hand. And like you said, Carl, their hand was forced, unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, it's caused them to have whole new opportunities for ministry going forward. There's not been a church I've talked to who has started doing online services of some kind who has actually not seen their attendance go up from an online standpoint. Now, that can't sustain more than likely just simply because people get tired of watching anything online after a certain amount of time. But I believe in our church's experience that we have new folks who have begun to check us out now that we've begun to open up back again that were not with us pre-COVID, and simply because of the opportunity we've had to be online.
They found you online. Christian, what are some of the biggest leaps in church online? How have we moved maybe the technology forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, in regards to, just connecting with people, I think that's been the big thing. And I know we've talked a lot about, our online service, but the big challenge that a lot of churches were having was social media. I saw social media before this was used more as an announcement platform, hey, here's this event that's happening. And now a big change has been that it's become an arm of ministry. I've seen some awesome things have been churches who don't quite have the resources to do church online, have been doing things like coffee hour or Bible study hour with the pastor, where you're getting ready for work in the morning and the pastor's going through a Bible study for on Instagram or Facebook for just 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and things like that are, I think, huge steps forward to just connecting with your audience and getting them engaged.
I think one encouraging thing that I've seen with that is this is stuff that we probably should have been doing anyway. And it's pushed some churches to treat social media as social, not just a billboard kind of thing.
But we've also seen more pastors have to take to social media. The church I was served at recently, when COVID started, pastors started Christian, like you were saying, did a Friday Devo, and that just blew up. And I think that's blowing up all over because I see a lot of that, and that's something that a pastor can get on a social media channel and record a video at his home. He doesn't have to be there with the stage lights and everything. He can do it from anywhere he's at, and that feels more real at times than just constantly posting the produced element. Actually having someone who's just hey, I'm just going to take 5 minutes here today on Friday and give you a word of encouragement to start your day or something for the week.
And not everything has to be dramatically produced. I think a lot of what I saw was at the very beginning was people trying to take their online and just doing a regular service online. And what I saw that kind of worked the best was, bringing the cameras forward. My own personal church, they actually shifted from the main auditorium to a multi-purpose room, just a few people in there, the band, made it more of a, a quaint experience.
That's really good.
Hey, Trevor, you talked about stats a little bit earlier. Where do you think we are? I mean, obviously, when COVID first started, numbers went through the roof, and then probably went down and leveled off, and they're kind of up and down everywhere. What do you think? Where do you think we are in terms of, is the church growing, declining? Where do you think numbers are?
Man, it's a really tough thing to say, and this is total speculation right now, but I think the spiritual nature of people is increasing, if that makes sense. I think people are people are starting to see, maybe over the past 9 months has kind of caused this, 10 months has caused this, but just that they're not in control of their own lives. They don't have the control maybe they thought they once had, because they had the bank account, they had the house, they had the job, they had all these things. And maybe some of those things have been taken away over the past year. And so it's causing some people, I think, to say, I've got to start looking at a power outside of myself because I can't control this. There's got to be something else. And so I don't know that the church, and again, I come from a particular denomination that is that is shrinking in the first place. And so for me, it's tough to say that from my experience, the church, the Big C church is growing. But certainly people's interest, I think, in spiritual things, interest in God is growing. And I think it's causing people to say, where can I find this thing that I'm looking for, which I think is a great opportunity for the church. If we can set ourselves up in the right way and in the right places, then we can see people that are looking for this and have answers for that. So again, online's the answer for that. I think Christian was 100% right. Social media is a place where people are always looking for something, and it's a great place to connect with them there. So I think it's a great opportunity.
So the church that my family attends, we systematically preach through the Bible, and we were at the end, like in 2 Peter maybe, and we jumped over and went straight to Revelation just because of the times and stuff, and attendance went crazy. Just because everybody's like, is this the end of the world? I'm interested. And so
I want the answers. I'm going to that church.
That's a great point. And maybe it's shown us that for too long we have preached things that people don't care about, and so maybe it's a very important thing for us to do as a church to become, Christian said it very well earlier, I think. I don't think we should focus necessarily on always having everything so polished and perfect in terms of what we are putting out, but we should spend the time to make sure that everything is intentional. And I think that is, you can make a perfect, polished thing, video, design, whatever, but if you've not thought it through, if you've not been intentional with it, it doesn't matter anyway. So intention for me is the biggest thing here. Let's be intentional about what we're communicating, what we're saying, because people who are looking for something, they're going to catch a hold of that way more than something shiny,
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
And I think from a technical aspect, something I've been I dive into the numbers a lot. And we saw a huge spike obviously in online, went massively up. And then we saw a sudden huge dip. I'm pretty sure that was across the board. And it depends on where you're streaming to, what you're doing online. But what a lot of what happened there is algorithms changed. You got the technical stuff behind it. You never do a Facebook Live ever, and suddenly you're doing Facebook Live. Facebook's gonna be like, hey, these people are doing something new. Let's push it out. And then it's going to catch up to you from a technical aspect. And I think I was listening to a podcast, Carey Nieuwhof, and he had guys from Barna, and I was looking up their research and stuff, and they're talking about church Christians. There's a lot of them that are questioning their need to go back to church, because the lives changing and stuff like that. And so I like Trevor said, it's really hard to see, are we declining or are we growing? Because I think what's happening is we're growing, like new people are interested, but people who have grown up in church are also like, do I really need this? I think it's a weird, interested. It's a weird position to be in.
You guys, I love that you mentioned the quality of content, and I love people hearing that from us, because we can make a great graphic. Our team is incredible at graphics and video content. But we're the ones also saying, hey, get on just connect with people. Like, it's the relationships that matter. And I think we saw that across the board. When the Tonight Show is done from Jimmy Fallon's house, right? It kind of, and
that's a good analogy too, because you saw a lot of the other late night shows they basically just did the same thing in a different place. But what was the most, I don't know, I think the thing I connected with most was Jimmy Fallon, because it just felt more close. It felt like you're saying, Trevor, intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you look at, news stations, it's not like they can travel to a pre-done studio. Like if they were going to do a remote with somebody, it could be in their, office or whatever. So I think it really set the playing field for everybody, that you don't have to do some big produced piece in order to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's kind of move to next year, to 2021, and talk about some ways that we might see the church going, and just some game changing ideas. All right, so let's start with this, and Christian, feel free to speak to this too. One thought that I had, and this is kind of our number one, is create worship experiences. And I think we've seen this, that are a both and. So you're not just creating for the room and then throwing it online. You need to really be intentional about creating an experience that can minister to both audiences. So treating your online as a campus of your church. So you wouldn't, if you had another campus, you wouldn't not mention them or leave them in the dark. You would be intentional about ministering to them too. Christian, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, resources, financially, time-wise, just all shifted 100% online towards the middle of this year. And now, obviously as churches open up, you've got to disperse resources back in different ways. But I would say the biggest thing is don't pull everything off of online. Don't go back to just the one camera in the back and that's it. There's a lot of people new audience there that will stay online. People, it might not even be from COVID. It might just simply be for, you've got an elderly audience who can't quite make it to an in-person gathering. You've got a big audience there that you can keep growing if you put the resources into it.
Yeah. What do you
I think it goes back to a word we just said, and that's something that I think will stand out the whole time, is intentionality. I don't think we were intentional with our streams before. And I think Trevor and Sean, we were talking a couple seconds ago. I think I'd agree. I think those who have been church people for a long time aren't coming back to church. And that's a downward trend. I think there are people that are seeing church experiences online for the first time and are starting to engage. So you might be seeing an upward trend there. I think the issue is, for a little while, for a couple months, people were intentional. Then it became a rut. And now we're going back to in person and everyone's just back to that. And so I think the key is, how are you being intentional? Because being intentional online is different than in person. In person, you can do connect cards or whatever, but online, you have to have a team of people that are in the chat, that are in there talking with people that are saying, hey, I see you're there. Where are you from? How can we help you today? How can we serve you? How can we pray for you? Hey, there's a Zoom chat right after this service to meet with a pastor. All the things you do in person can still be done, but you have to do that. You have to do the same amount of work. You have to put the same amount of energy into it. And so if you're not intentional with your online stream, it's just going to become a video that I scroll through, and 2 seconds into the song I don't like, I'm scrolling to the next. But if it's an actual, you're engaging with everyone on there and you're actually watching every week and you're starting to see names and you're connecting with those people, I think that's where we'll start to see differences, and we'll start to see that continues to be an opportunity to reach people. And then, like you just said, but speaking to the cameras, don't go back to just one camera in the back that's so far out, no one even knows what's really happening. Continue to be intentional. The things we learned about lighting, the things we learned about video, the things we learned about setting things up so that people actually feel like they're engaging with your team, with your pastor, with what's happening in the room. Continue to do that and find a way to constantly pivot to do both in-person experiences well that connect with people, but also make sure your online experience is seeing and connecting with what's happening in the room.
Yeah, and I think that really speaks into experiences overall, because we've seen this since the beginning of Christianity. We've seen shifts like this. I mean, when the persecution has started happening in Jerusalem and everybody spread out, that's it goes throughout history. And I mean, this is just another instance of that happening. Something happened, something catastrophic happened, and we spread out. And so now we're reaching more people than ever. And I think being intentional about your online services and not giving up what makes them different, what makes them special. With the new generations coming, I think this is something that had to happen. With the new generations coming up, you've got millennials, younger millennials, and you've got Gen Z and all them. They're online. They're not. They don't want to go to church. A lot of them. That's where they live, is online. If they want to watch something, I have a daughter. She's 10 years old. She doesn't want to watch the TV in her room. She wants to watch it on her phone. She has the same apps on the TV on the phone. I'm like, why don't you watch it on TV? Well, no, my phone's right here. So it's crazy to me, but and I think that's something that the church would have missed heavily had something like this not happened, because they're missing out on those types of experiences.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is take your worship experience beyond Sunday. So, gone are the days of come to me, let us feed you here and then you go. I think that, right now we're in we have to go to them. And so repurposing Sunday content during the week, I think is a big deal. Steve, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, there's just so much that happens that you prep, that you're intentional with about a Sunday morning that then can be reused throughout the week to connect with people. So, people aren't necessarily, you'd want them to, but maybe they're not going to watch the whole service online. And so you have opportunities to take content you do on Sunday and reconnect it again. Sharing testimonies and stories that you might have in your pre-roll on your online service on Sunday, but sharing those as just one-off videos. The stats are there. People aren't going to engage on social media during the week for probably longer than a couple minutes at max. So breaking your content up into short bites where people can engage with it throughout the week, I think is important. Some other ideas I've seen that churches have really done a good job with is sharing quotes from songs. So engaging people in worship throughout the week, maybe connecting Spotify playlists like, hey, we sang this past Sunday, or hey, we're singing this Sunday, maybe tune your heart to worship. My church had a Christmas gathering and we had the playlist on during the week. And so we were kind of listening to that before we met together on a Sunday. Clips from your sermon. This is something that I still don't see a whole lot of churches doing. See some, but taking your sermon and clipping it into short bite segments. So maybe I think one thing that doesn't get done a lot is pastors working with your team, whoever's going to produce those clips, to say, what's the most important takeaway from my sermon? What do I want people to get from this? And how can we clip what I did on Sunday to actually help push that? I think we see a lot of churches clipping. We do a lot of work even at 1230 with clipping people's sermons. But how intentional are pastors meeting with their production team and saying, hey, this is what I wanted to communicate on Sunday. How can we clip, 3 or 4 different clips throughout the week to make sure that my message, is continuing to be communicated even in as people go along their work week. And then I think celebrating and highlighting what happens on Sunday, and also your volunteers, the volunteers that are with you in person. And then also I think the thing that's missed is the volunteers that maybe aren't yet back with you, and maybe they're serving in an online capacity, maybe they're serving remotely. How are you highlighting, celebrating, engaging them? One thing that I've seen, at least in a couple of churches that I've talked with, is that volunteers aren't coming back as quickly as we thought they would this year. And so I think one thing that could be missed is if we just get back into doing what we've been doing and we don't continue to build those relationships offline, celebrating, and trying to pursue and grow those relationships, we're probably going to have a problem. So celebrate and continue to, highlight those people in your church, and continue to ask, for them to come back and join you with what God's doing, but also celebrate what God's doing in their lives as well.
Good.
And I think it's important too, like from a preaching standpoint, to make sure your messages don't culminate in 30 minutes. You don't want your message to be done in 30 minutes and then people leave and they're finished. That message needs to finish all throughout the week as you give an opportunity for people to kind of live out whatever you've encouraged them to do. And so even from a social media standpoint, we try to, within our different departments at our church, to make sure we post something connectional. And so make sure like this particular post is meant to be a connection point for people to respond in some kind of way and interact. Celebration, like you said, Steve, like we want to post every single week that's going to be celebration. That's going to be something we're celebrating within the church. And then something that's informational. Like what is something that's happening that we want to make people aware of? So if you're posting for connection, for celebration, and for information, every single week, however many times you feel like is appropriate. Like, to me, you're hitting all those points. That's taking Sunday morning from just a Sunday morning experience now to, an everyday kind of experience all throughout.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So number one, create your worship experience both and treat your online as a campus. Number two, take your worship experience beyond Sunday. Number three, we have be intentional about your web presence. So make sure that you really are strategic. Don't let it be the dirty closet that you never look at, but be really intentional about that being the first impression.
Who has dirty closets anymore? Does anyone have dirty closets?
I do.
I do. I have like 3 of them.
Sean, you want to hit on this one?
Yeah. So something that is changed in website, I don't know, etiquette. I don't know what you want to call it. Just the idea behind websites. It used to be a catch-all. Like, hey, go to our website, yourchurch.com to sign up for events, to do this, to do this, to this. That's not really what they're for anymore, because social media has kind of just negated all that. It's a brochure. It's your front door. Everybody needs to make it really pretty, short, simple, convey right at the, you've got something called above the fold. That's when it loads. You've got from there up, that's above the fold. Your most important stuff needs to be there. What you want people to do, their actions, a call to action if you can, just really anything that they absolutely need. It should be right there. And just all on that front page. You can have other stuff, hey, this is our ministries, go to this page, whatever. But it needs to be super intentional. Again, that's I think that's kind of our buzzword for this whole session is intentionality, because people notice. They notice when you look at a website, if it's all over the place. If they have to search for something, you've lost them.
Yeah.
If to be honest, and this is super technical, if your load time is more than 3 seconds, you've lost them. Because there's just so many options out there. So you really need to update that constantly. If there's stuff on the front page you need to do, like especially during this time, coronavirus updates, like what are you doing? Where can people get help? Whatever the felt need of your community is, and whatever information you want to convey needs to just be right up there, right at the beginning. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump to another one, and Sean, feel free to speak to this one too, and that is connect and follow up. So it's really important that they don't just see your stream and they're done, or come to your church and they're done, but to really be intentional about connecting with them and following up with people. Sean, Christian, you guys want to speak to that?
You really need to, this is my opinion, this is the most important thing you can do beyond a message, beyond anything else. And that might be sacrilege to some people, that this is more important than even the message. Because if I'm being honest, when I watch a message on Sunday, I remember maybe 1 or 2 snippets. I don't remember the whole thing, but if somebody connects with me, I'm going to remember that. And it's going to create that, that initial level of discipleship is really what we're after. You foster and create opportunities for follow-up, because you're asking people to give you something. Whenever you do an online digital or connection card of any kind, you're saying, hey, give me this. And the way people are wired, people don't do things for free. We don't do things unless we can see a value in it. Like, what are you going to give me? If I give you my name and email address, what are you going to give me in return? Are you going to bombard me with stuff that I don't want and make it difficult for me to care about you? Or, are you going to ignore me? I gave you this and you never talk to me again. What's the point? So, those kind of forms, you want to make them short and simple, because you don't want to ask for too much. Maybe name and email address. Honestly, all you need is a first name and an email address. If you can get a phone number, great. You don't really need their last name, because you get that over time. You don't get that all up front. You don't ask them to marry you on the first date. You're just like, hey, give me your number so I can reach out to you. And I won't text you every 5 minutes, I promise, Short and sweet. And more people will do it. You'll see a higher completion rate. Make a follow-up calendar, make a schedule. When somebody connects with you for the first time, what do you do? And not only when they connect to you for a specific reason. If they connect, say, hey, I got saved this week. What do you do? Do you contact them and say, hey, we're so excited you get saved. Now, here's our giving link. That's not going to go well. But you say, hey, here's some resources for you just starting out on your journey. Somebody will call you if you want. Your next step is to be baptized. Whatever your next step is, whatever you want them to do to follow up on their journey. But make it intentional. And make it the same across the board. If one guy gets saved and another guy gets saved, they both need to get the same stuff, and just make it intentional and consistent.
Christian, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I know we talked about earlier, like we see a slow trickle back from our volunteers. I remember when I first really got saved and kind of came back, and I think I immediately volunteered right after that and the big reason was because I just wanted to I felt this change and I wanted to be a part of it. And I wanted to be, around these people who feel that with me. So I think it's a big, sign to say, we don't see a whole lot of volunteers because maybe they're not feeling that type of community online. And I think as far as a practical solution to that, a really cool concept that I've liked is an online pastor, someone who is dedicated to doing exactly that, building connections. It's not just, hey, I throw out a post here and hopefully somebody sees it, but it's that person who's following up, who's seeing the needs of the online crowd and taking action to help people in this way or that way. So I think, an online pastor is a really cool practical step to address that.
Yeah, I think that goes back to our first one, being intentional about the online presence too, because maybe not just an online pastor, but volunteers in the chat. So you might not have as many volunteers in person, but why not repurpose those same volunteers to put them in the chat or have them serve online in some way, just like they would serve opening the door or parking greeter or coffee station or something like that. Okay, last one.
Let me just one more thing. I think the key, and Ben Stapley's been talking about it. I don't know if any of you guys who are watching this follow Ben Stapley. He's talking about pivoting a lot. And I think that's the thing in 2021. Keep finding ways to look at what you're doing and see if you need a pivot. Something that my church, I thought they were outdated until honestly this year, but they're using Connect cards to hand out to students on a campus with a QR code on the back to connect with the pastor. And all the QR code pulls up is the contact number for the pastor, and they can literally just text or call. And I thought for me, walking into this year, if you would have told me QR codes, I said, those are ancient, those aren't being used, but they've actually had a lot of success, and they seem to be engaging with a lot of students here in Pittsburgh for that. So I would just say there's things like that maybe that you haven't thought of that are older that maybe you can repurpose and say, hey, maybe a QR code on the back of our seats for our in-physical gathering is a way to not have to pass out flyers and bulletins. We can actually just do QR codes and people pull stuff up on their phone, and it's safer for our environment. Online, I've seen Passion City Church, and other churches use it as well, but those short text codes where it's like 5 numbers to remember instead of a whole long deal. Maybe there's things like that where you're like, we need to figure out a way to actually connect and engage with the people that are in our stream. And those are ways you can do that, or in person. So just constantly be thinking of ways to pivot. Don't just get I think the message for all of us is we constantly want to get set in our ways and not look towards what can we do? How can we get better? What do we need to change? What do we need to shift? And so I think what 2020 has taught us is constantly be looking about, do you need to pivot what you're doing in order to continue to do the mission that God's called us to do?
Yeah. All right, last one as we wrap today, and Trevor, I'd love for you to speak to this one, is have a clear, concise, compelling vision. So make sure that whether that's doctrinally or just have a really good vision for your church going forward. You want to speak at that one?
So first, I just wanted to kind of live into the whole Zoom world we're living into by having my internet fail a second ago. I apologize, but I'm back. So yes, clear vision is key for 2021. So I'll give you an example. So I want to give you guys a mission statement. I want you to tell me what this company is, okay? So here's the first one. We save people money so they can live better. Who do you think?
Geico?
No.
I don't know.
Walmart. Yes, Walmart.
Oh.
We save people money so they can live better. How about this one? To refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness, to create value and make a difference. Focus on the first part, to refresh the world.
So water?
More refreshing than water. Coke. Coca-Cola.
Oh,
So these two mission statements, though, they drive everything these two companies do. And so if you think about it, we save money so they can live better. This is what Walmart tries to do. Probably in every single employee, they want to kind of instill this within them. And so I think in 2021, one of the most important things we can do as a church is to clarify who we are, what we're about, and what we do. Because again, if we have all these new folks, like Sean said, who are looking for places maybe to belong or to have significance, meaning, and purpose, then we have to make sure we communicate that very clearly within our communities, whether it's online or in person, so that folks will be able to say, yes, I want to be a part of this. This sounds like something that I would be willing to kind of live my life for, blood, sweat, and tears kind of thing. I'm willing to invest in this and become a part of this thing. So, but if we're not clear, then we're just one voice of literally thousands of voices within our people's lives. And it's not very inspiring. So, as you said, Carl, I think doctrinally, it's very important to be very clear doctrinally where we stand, what we believe as a church. I think it's very important. Then also vision-wise, where we're headed, what we're doing. Do you want to be a part of this? If so, jump on board, join us. So I think it's a really huge key in this year.
Yeah, good. Well, guys, thank you for the time today. Trevor, would you mind just giving us a prayer for this next year for the churches that we serve, Big C Church? Just kind of pray us out.
Yeah, let's pray together. God, we're so thankful that you are a faithful God who is with us every step of the way. And so even though this past year has been difficult, it's been strange, it's been odd, I know for pastors and for youth workers and children's workers and staff people in churches all over this country, this has been a very, very trying time. And so, God, I pray that today you would encourage them by your Spirit. Would you help them to once again engage, to be intentional about what you've called them to? And I pray, God, you would give them incredible success, that we might make a difference in this world, that we might draw people to yourself. You are the most important thing, Jesus, and we pray that they'd be a part of everything that we do. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Hey guys, as our gift to you this year, we are offering our entire ready-made media library for a massive 50% off through the end of the year. So you only have a few days left to grab this deal. Just use the code CHRISTMASGO at checkout at 1230.media/go. Take 50% off the library. It's hard to make this any cheaper, but we know the kind of year that you've had. It's been wild, and we want to serve you the best way that we can. So this is one way that we can help you. Just use the code CHRISTMASGO at checkout at 1230.media/go for 50% off the library for 12 months. Again, the code CHRISTMASGO at 1230.media/go. That's 1230.media/go.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Well, hey guys, thanks for checking out the show this week and this year. We're hoping and praying that 2021 will look a whole lot different than 2020. Next week, we'll kick off the year with the author of Kingdom Innovation for a Brave New World. Doug Paul will be joining me on the show. Doug and I will be talking about ways the church can innovate this year. We'll do 2 weeks with Doug on the topic of innovation. Well, thank you guys for hanging out this week. Hope you get a little bit of time off as we go into the new year, and go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next time.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.